Alright. Alright. I've been off the internet all day, so I have not had any of this spoiled for me. We're gonna go through the development manifesto. Let's knock the music down just a tiny bit. Alright. Global gem levels. For a while we wanted to include modifiers to caster weapons that provide multiplicative damage increases for spells, similar to how physical weapon modifiers affected the base damage of attacks. Previously this took on the form of elemental penetration and modifiers that added a portion of element as chaos, but this patch we want to push that further in the form of global modifiers to gem levels. Sorry, what? Like the things for chaos, but for everything? Stars were previously the go-to weapon for increasing gem levels, but their modifiers only apply to the gem within the staff. Caster-oriented one-handed weapons will now be able to roll new modifiers that grant +1 to all fire, cold, lightning, physical, or chaos skill gems, not just the ones associated with the weapons. Scepters will not have the chaos tag available. Stars will be able to roll a modifier that grants +1 to +2, and a rarer tier +3 modifier available. Whew. Just staves, not bows? One-handed caster weapons will be able to roll very rare additional modifiers that grant +1 to all spells. Oh shit. You can get a +3 to a specific and +1 to all spell gems on a staff. That's insane. Okay. Staff versions of the modifiers will grant +1 to 2 to all spells. These weapons will no longer be able to roll the equivalent modifiers that only apply to socketed gems. My +1 wand is gone. That's okay. That's worth it. But my +1 wand. No. It's worth noting that the new modifiers do not apply to support gems. Daggers and war staffs that can't roll caster modifiers will still be able to roll the old local elemental gem modifiers, and all non-caster weapon types will still be able to roll any existing local gem modifiers like +1 to socketed bow gems. Okay, so it's actually a spell league again? Is what I'm hearing? Just spells and minions, rip attack builds, they had their league. It was only Cyclone, but that's fine. There are a number of consequences to these changes. Because of the global gem modifiers, so much more powerful than previous local modifiers, we're removing the low-level crafting recipe that added +1 level to socketed. Yep, saw that coming. This recipe has been replaced with a similar one that applies added fire, lightning, fire, cold, or lightning damage to spells, and takes the rarity of the item into account to determine the mod's tier. Ooh, this is actually a buff. Hello, friend. Except for this bit, there is currently no replacement for the chaos recipe. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Essence of Rage, Sorrow, and Spite now apply penetration to their respective weapons. Okay. Some uniques have been changed to apply modifiers to global gems. Mostly the case on caster weapons, but some specific minion items like Bones of Allure have received this treatment. Bones of Allure will now grant +1 to all raised zombie gems and all raised spectre gems instead of affecting the maximum minion count. As the additional maximum spectre modifier was much too powerful in a single item. Was it? Now raising the level of all minions high enough will grant additional maximum minions. These modifiers are still useful. All the changes will be shown in the patch note. Okay. Wait, so the +1 level is gone, but +1 damage is new meta? Yeah, look, the +1 weapon, the +1 to socketed weapons is gone. But plus levels is pretty big at low levels. But overall, by Act 3, you were always looking for a 4 link anyway, and then just looking for damage on your weapons. And now there's a really good way to get a good amount of damage on your weapon. So it's maybe a tiny nerf in like Act 1, but definitely still quite a viable vendor recipe to use. Like being able to add a good amount of flat damage is almost as good as getting an extra level. So I'm on board. That's fine. Flat damage is hard to come by too. Like it's going to be fine, and it's going to be a buff to anything after Act 3 on your league start, so it's fine. Traps and mines! We've made a whole host of changes to mines that completely change how they behave. They now behave like traps, and how you would interact with them, like traps. As such, many systems that interact with mines, and by extensions traps, which are now the same thing, have changed. You can read about the mine changes here, blah 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 blah. Shaper/Elder modifiers that grant +1 to traps thrown or mines placed will no longer appear. They provided too much damage increase for a single mod. To compensate, some traps have had their damage and area improved. We're also introducing changes to the trap support. Will now grant a higher value of trap throw speed and increases to trap damage as the gem levels. Okay. It's sad to see those mods go, but at the same time, they were all but mandatory. They were so very strong that if you had to pick between having a god tier 6 tier 1 pair of gloves or a like tier 6 life 30 of 1 res and an additional trap, you took the shitty gloves with an additional trap on it, even if you were stuck with it forever. Like it was so important to have that +1 trap or the +1 mine helmet that it didn't actually matter how shit the rest of the item was. You would always get that, no matter what. It was number 1, pretty much mandatory. So I guess that should have gone, and things that are 100% mandatory in all cases shouldn't really exist. So there we go. I'm okay with that. That's fine. We've included a couple of new modifiers from various kinds of crafting to improve trap and mine itemization. As an example, the Essence of Zeal now rolls trap and mine throw speed modifiers on belt. Lol. Mine throw speed still feels weird, but okay. Two-handed incursion weapons with trap damage modifiers now have higher values than one-handed incursion weapons, and the bonus will apply to mine damage as well. Honestly, that always felt a bit weird. So, good. We've also buffed some underutilized trap support, like charge trap support and advanced trap support. Cool. Cool. Alright. Made a damage over time. We've made a number of changes to improve itemization and the passive tree power for builds that use ailments to deal damage, as well as damage multipliers for burning skills. Ooh, fire damage over time multiplier? We've replaced all non-ailment chaos damage over time multipliers with chaos damage over time multipliers, so they'll now apply to poison as well. Don't understand why it wasn't like that to begin with. This is particularly so that poison builds have a few interesting options, but mostly to make those passes and items less painful to read. Thanks. So no more non-ailment chaos damage over time multiplier. Nakdot is dead. Kadot is the new thing. C dot. That's better. Yeah. Yeah. C dot. Perfect Agony has been changed significantly. As a result, so have ailments from critical strike. Previously, ailments from critical strikes dealt 50% more damage by... Previously, ailments from critical strike dealt 50% more damage by default, similar to an unmodified critical hit, and the only way to modify this value was to take Perfect Agony. Now, ailments from critical strikes have a plus 50% to damage over time multiplier by default, which will be additive with damage over time multipliers from other sources. Okay. Now Perfect Agony lets critical multiplier also apply to ailment damage over time from critical strikes at 50% of their value, which is more potent than the previous value of 30%. This means investing in critical strike multiplier is more rewarding for ailment builds unless you're already heavily invested in other sources of damage over time. Multiplier. The intent of this change is to allow critical poison builds to have more potential for damage and growth with the keystone, and make the keystone a worthwhile investment for critical bleed or ignite builds. Huh. I have to look into that. I will need to see the new tree, but I feel like that might make poison really, really high on the deeps. Like really high. Like almost old school poison level high. Like that could get disgusting. We're gonna need to keep an eye on that. Many passives that increase burning damage, poison damage, or bleed damage now have equivalent damage over time multiplier bonuses. They've all been rebalanced as a result. We've also had a new small cluster that gives some potent bonuses to ignites from critical strike, and others that give bonus to all ailments from critical strikes. Okay. There are also new item modifiers and crafting modifiers that apply fire damage over time multiplier or ignite damage over time multiplier to give burning builds options closer to cold damage. So this is important. Fire damage over time multiplier or ignite damage over time multiplier. Hello, Scorching Ray, and the other one that's a ring around you that I am blanking on the name of. Righteous Fire, thank you. That's the one. Hello, Righteous Fire. Righteous Fire would like its day back in the light. Maybe it's enough to make things like Explosive Arrow or Burning Arrow useful? Maybe. We'll see. As a result of these burning changes, we've reviewed all of the burning damage skills and adjusted the value. Righteous Fire in particular has received some mechanical changes. It now deals a smaller portion of your health as fire damage to enemies around you, but has additional burning damage value that increases as the gem levels. The goal of this change is to provide more power for builds that don't invest as heavily into maximum life, and slightly less power in builds that invested the majority of their resources into getting large value of maximum life. Yeah, alright. We've rebalanced some supports that affect damage over time, like Unbound Ailments, Poison Support, and Vicious Projectile Support. Okay, so this Righteous Fire thing, I'm calling it right now. They've screwed up the balance on this, and it is still the best to put as many points into life as you can, and the super convenient fire damage over time multipliers that are nearby will be more than enough to make up for the nerf, and you will end up doing more damage and being just as tanky. Which is good, because that's what Righteous Fire needs, but it is against what they said here. But I think that's how it's gonna play. I think that's definitely how that's gonna play. There's no way they get the balance on that right. There's just no way. So this is the one thing I don't see them doing properly in that whole change. The rest of it, I'm excited about. This so far, they're not going to nail that. No way. No way. There's too much going on in those builds. Nah. Nah. Alright, minions. We've made a large number of additions and changes to minions to improve build diversity and give players the options of having more control over their armies. Cool. Almost every system in the game that touches minions has been reviewed and rebalanced or changed. Here are some of the more notable changes. All minions have had their accuracy increased. The result of this is that a level 20 raised zombie, summon skeleton, raging spirit have an 80% chance to hit a level 84 mob if you have no minion accuracy modifiers. That is... If they're at 80% base, they're capped. Everyone's capped by accident. Like, right? They're capped. They're capped. Like, you're gonna pick up a few percentages. They're capped. That's great. We needed this. Like, summon skeletons was only viable. It was only viable. Summon skeletons was only viable if you took the skeleton node in here. That one. That says, summon skeletons hits can't be evaded. And then when you did that, it was fantastic, but without it, it was 100% a worthless gem. Like, for endgame, you could get away with leveling stuff. You can get away with leveling nearly anything. But for endgame, it was basically worthless without that node. Or, yeah, or a Lycosidae and Necrotic Ages. Like, you had to do that to make them even good. Giving all of the minions like an 80% chance to hit means you can round them all out. You can balance them all a lot better. And you don't have to have shenanigans like, this particular minion can't get hit. Hey, Matty. Alright. Golems have been reviewed and adjusted to make more varieties of golems that have competitive levels of power. Chaos, Lightning, and Stone Golem.
Did you turn off the alerts?
Yes. Thank you for the biddies card, dog. It's gone now. Right, okay, hang on, where was I? Golems. Right. Chaos, Lightning, and Stone Golems have been improved in various ways to make them more competitive with Flame and Ice Golem, as well as the new Carrion Golem. As an example, Chaos Golems have more area of effect on its cascade, 100% of physical converted to Chaos, and its ongoing Chaos Storm now has spell damage modifiers applied to this spell damage over time, in addition to damage adjustments. Ooh. Actual golem builds that aren't fire or ice? Cool. If you're targeting a monster when you cast Summon Raging Spirit, the Raging Spirit created will attempt to attack that enemy first. If it can't reach the enemy or the enemy dies, it will return to its standard behavior. This will still be overridden by Deathmark support. Cool. The minion and totem elemental resist support has been changed to elemental army support. It no longer applies to totems, but lets supported minions apply a 10% exposure based on the highest element damage dealt, and grants them more elemental damage. At high level, it also grants more maximum elemental resistances. Interesting. This seems more like a caster spectre thing. But also, yeah, rip my quality minion and totem elemental resist support that took up like half the screen. That's gone now. It's now elemental army support. Oh well. Convocation's cooldown has been shortened. Now that Necromancer no longer has a notable that grants cooldown recovery to it, its life recovery is now percentage of maximum life rather than a flat value, letting it scale to higher levels a little bit better. I am on board with this. This is the one thing we've been worried about with minions coming up, or at least the one thing I've been worried about with minions coming up, is that all of my regen seems to have disappeared, and that was the main way they lived. So at least Convocation might be helping me make up for that. So that's nice. Desecrate has had its cooldown removed and now has a shorter cast time. It has a shorter duration and a lower corpse limit now, but this will make it much more reliable tool for both minion builds and builds that explode corpses. Cheers, Neon. Well done. I wonder if this change did exist, or if he rocked up on Monday and was like, fuck, quick, hang on, let me change that. We'll probably never know. Alright, so offerings are now more reliable and easier to manage. They now have a higher base duration. They gain additional seconds for each corpse consumed, consume half as many corpses, and they now have an ongoing marker over the player rather than on the ground, so you'll always know when they expire. Oh yeah. The Dead Reckoning unique jewel can now turn up to 15 skeletal warriors into mages, up from 5, and is now limited to 1. Using multiple copies of the jewel was an unnecessary cost for the power provided, and this should make the build more accessible as well. Skeletal mages was one of my favorite builds as minions that I ever did. I actually really enjoy them, so I'm on board with that. I'm on board with that. Like, I know they technically weren't as powerful, it's just the playstyle suited me much more. I was putting out little turrets. Maybe that's my minion build. Maybe I'll put out little mage turrets in the Tower Defense League, and I'll just have even more turrets. Why not? Who knows what I'll do? I could do anything. There are many changes to crafting modifiers that affect minions, including a new Atlas-specific type, the Convoking Wand? Convoking Wand? That's how you say that? Which has an implicit that lets it roll new minion modifiers. Okay, Essence of Fear has been changed to match other minion bonuses, which means it grants higher value of minion damage on weapons. Nice. Incursion item minion modifiers have been changed and improved. Cool, whatever. New elemental resistance and minion elemental resistance crafted modifiers have been added. Ooh. Ooh. A new craftable minion movement speed modifier has been added. Cool. Alright. How much more is there? Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. There's so much. Ooh, alright. Alright, let's go. Mana for spellcasters. Well, we've been having some mana problems. Not gonna lie. In 3.7.0, we changed Warlord's Mark to only apply its leech to attacks, as Mana Leech was one of the easiest ways to recover mana for intellect characters, outclassing most other recovery mechanics with very little cost. In 3.8.0, we changed all the remaining sources of Mana Leech, either replacing the stat or changing them to only leech from attacks. This includes enchantments, the mana leech support, and unique items. Get fucked. Okay, sure. No, all right. Okay, no. Just keep reading before you get before you read about it too hard. The general philosophy is that mana sustain for spellcasters should be something a player has to think about or find some way to manage, similar to accuracy for attack characters. You fixed accuracy so that we didn't need to worry about it anymore. Accuracy used to be a problem. Last patch you fixed accuracy, so now it's just basically handed to us. And we love that. But, so we're going back to the... We're taking the old accuracy that everyone hated, and we're trying to make mana feel like that? Is that the story? Is that what's going on? I'm very confused. Your post doesn't make sense right here. I feel like Zeb wrote this bit. We'll move on. Okay. Similar to accuracy for attack characters, however, we don't want the solution to be huge investment, and we've tried to provide a few different and interesting ways to sustain mana recovery. Mana flasks have received a major review. Values have been adjusted, recovering more mana and having more uses available, so they're more reliable for longer encounters. We've introduced a selection of new modifiers to mana flasks, including a new enduring modifier that lets the mana flask remain after reaching full mana at the cost of duration. Okay. But what about the Soul Eater? How are you gonna... What are you gonna do about Soul Eater, guys? Okay, that's fine. No, it's fine. Moving on. Passives that affect Mana Flask have been added or improved, including the new Essence Extraction notable that grants a Mana Flask 1 charge every 3 seconds, as well as mana regeneration, increased flask charges gain, and removing 1 random elemental ailment when you use a Mana Flask. Stats that subtracted... Oh, stats that subtracted from the final mana cost of skills made managing mana for certain channeling skills far too simple. We've split these mods into channeled and non-channeled versions, with the channeled skill version granting a much smaller reduction. Get fucked, Cyclone, by the way. Do you know how hard it is to maintain mana on Cyclone right now if you don't have minus mana? I mean, I'm on board with this change. You're right, it was needed. But also, get fucked, Cyclone. Oh, well, okay. Okay. The reduced mana support has been reworked and is now the inspiration support. In addition to reducing mana cost, it now grants an inspiration charge each time you spend mana with a supported skill up to 5 charges. The supported skill gains more elemental damage and critical chance for each inspiration charge. After spending more than a specified amount of mana, the inspiration charges are removed. This rewards you for investing in reduced mana costs for your skills as much as possible to maximize the uptime of inspiration. Okay. Okay, I feel like that's just going to be mines that do that though. But okay. Clarity has also been changed to grant higher values of mana regeneration at higher gem levels. Cool. A variety of passive tree clusters have been added, including ones that improve mana and arcane surge, ones that give us curse, one that gives curse bonuses and a way to recover mana after hitting or killing cursed enemies, and one that grants spell damage based on your maximum mana up to a limit. Ooh. Ooh. I wonder what that limit is. Okay. Alright. Alright. I'm on board. Alright. 7.3.0 melee. We're on to melee. I don't know, J-Split. I don't know. Melee introduced a whole host of changes. 3.7 introduced a whole host of changes and improvements to various melee skills. This resulted in a lot of people playing Cyclone. Yeah, like half of everybody playing. Cyclone benefited from a combination of melee range and area modifiers in a way that let it surpass the area of effect of almost any other skill. Along with all the benefits that Cyclone has, rather than pushing other skills that use melee range, we've changed how Cyclone calculates its area, making the increases granted additive with other areas increases. Yep, we know this. This has meant that we've been able to provide more melee range on the passive tree. Master of the Arena, Brinkmanship, Bonebreaker, and Splitting Strikes now grant +2 to melee range, up from +1. Cleaving, Flaying, and Claws of Pride now grant +1. This will improve the area of strike attacks, making them easier to use and more effective at taking on packs of enemies. Will it? Will it? Ancestral Call has had its damage penalty lowered, resulting in no damage penalty at level 20 of the gem. This is to further help clearing capacity of strike attacks. Probably could have used up to like 19% damage at level 12, so it was at least a damage support, even if it wasn't as good as a different one. But I guess this is better than nothing. We've increased the base damage of multi-strike while lowering the bonuses for the second and third swing, so that this skill is much less punitive if you only perform 1 or 2 attacks. Multi-strikes being cancelable is something we've decided to stick to. It keeps melee characters more mobile. I'm on board with the idea, but unfortunately the only thing multi-strike needed was its attack speed back, and I feel like no one's going to use it anyway. We'll just stack attack speed other ways. We've lowered the added physical damage on retaliation attacks because of how high the damage output could be when used with face breakers. Their base damage has been increased to compensate. Okay. Pulverize support now provides increased area of effect instead of more area of effect. The skill provided too much area of effect for heavily invested characters, so we've changed the values to be additive with other area increases. The support now grants more damage than before to make up for the loss of area. Zeb, get out of my patch notes. Fuck. That's not great. That one right there, that's not great. That's not a good move. I disagree with this move. I strongly disagree. Pulverize was fine on everything except Cyclone. Cyclone was the only thing that got so much area that putting a more area of effect on it really, really broke things. And they already fixed Cyclone. Therefore, I didn't need them to fuck Pulverize at the same time. Because there goes like Earthquake, Sweep, Ground Slam, and all of the other things that we were using that had just enough area to feel good now. Yeah, that's bad. That's a bad change. You made a boo-boo. There's a boo-boo right here. You've still got a few days to fix it, guys. There's a boo-boo right here. Just take that out. Leave pulverize like it is. Tornado Shot has been outperforming other bow attack skills. Oh my god, for like years. Tornado Shot has been outperforming other bow attacks while also having potent single target damage. This is partially due to the power of additional secondary projectile enchants. We've changed the enchantment to be from Eternal Labyrinth only and to grant 1 secondary projectile down from 2. Okay. We fixed a bug that meant the secondary projectiles from forks could hit the target that they forked from with certain skills. For players, this will only apply to Tornado Shot and Barrage. This provides a huge unintended damage bonus for these skills. You just listed the only 2 bow skills that do decent damage. It's not true, I guess we got Scourge Arrow as well, but that's it. And it's very different from all the others. You just said the only 2 ones that do decent damage were accidentally doing decent damage. Okay. We've given added lightning damage to Lightning Arrow and added cold damage to Ice Shot to help them scale better throughout the game, and improved the damage of projectile scaling on Split Arrow. Okay. We've also made some improvements to how projectiles select targets when chaining. Previously, 2 projectiles from a single attack could attempt to chain to a single target, but only 1 would be able to hit. Now, chaining projectiles won't attempt to chain to the same target unless no other targets are available, which significantly improves clearing capacity of chaining projectiles when used with additional projectiles. Okay. That's a buff. So 3 nerfs and a buff. Okay. So your Tornado Shot Speedy Boy Deadeye will still be your Tornado Shot Speedy Boy Deadeye, and he just won't have some really, really good single target to go with his Super Speedy Boy map clear. That's all. And Barrage never needed to fork or chain to do enough damage, so if you really need a boss killer, you can just change into Barrage and it'll be fine. So I think this is okay. I think that's fine. I think that adding a secondary projectile, even just 1, is still fine. Yeah, this is fine. This is still fine. There'll be no problem. If anything, I'm excited that maybe I might be able to use Ice Shot, because it's always been my favorite, but it's shit. Maybe it gets enough damage that I can use it. And maybe its buffs mixed with Tornado Shot's nerfs means that I might actually care enough to use Ice Shot, hopefully. And honestly, even if they dumpster tier Tornado Shot right now, like, it's been way too good for way too long. Like, it's time. It's time. Other spells. Contagion no longer gains radius as the gem level. The skill provided too much clearing capacity over large areas at high levels. No, it didn't. It was just this 1 league. It was fine. I mean, whatever. Body Swap has been significantly reworked. The most notable change is that it can target living enemies to warp to their locations. Though the skill benefits from more area of effect and a corpse explosion when destroying a corpse, there are other mechanical damage changes that make it more flexible and more powerful, especially when teleporting around a single target. Okay. Something body swap totems something? Okay. Passive tree changes. We've made a large number of changes in the passive tree in relation to mana, mines, and bonuses for damage over time, poison, and more. The mine passives have almost been completely reworked. The damage over time and poison clusters now have different stats and values, and there are a number of new mana clusters found out on the passive tree. Excuse me, I'm really going to need the passive tree, guys. We've split the flask effect cluster that was near Witch into 4 different passive clusters granting flask effect alongside other effects. These are spread over the passive tree with a preference towards the dexterity area of the tree, as the ranger has the strongest flask association. All of the other ones are near flask. Each cluster has less flask effect than the old cluster, but in total, there is now more flask effect on the passive tree than before. Oh, guys, you're going to want to be real fucking careful with that. You're going to want to be real careful with how much flask effect you hand out, guys. Like, I'm just saying, we can do some shenanigans with enough flask effect. That's... You want to be careful. You really do. Oh, guys. Oh, guys. Okay. Hey, guys, remember Bottled Faith? Yeah, it's back this time. Yep. Yeah, Flask Effect is probably the strongest stat that exists on the entire tree. Handing out more of that is dangerous. Okay. We've raised the base radius of all traditional aura skills. We've raised the base radius of all traditional aura skills and lowered the bonus from increased area of effect of aura skills on the tree. This is because the passive stats will also apply to mine skills as they count as aura skills. The passives are still great choices for mine characters, being more powerful than the other generic area of effect increases, but don't have values more than twice the number seen elsewhere. We're also giving Smite more radius at gem levels. Its area of effect was balanced around aura area of effect passives. Okay. 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 We've added a new power charge cluster similar to the endurance and frenzy charge ones seen in 3.7.0. Honestly, expected that. Everyone expected that, right? As soon as we saw that there was a frenzy and an endurance one, but no power one, we were like, well, where's the power one, guys? Like, that was coming, for sure. Clusters introduced in 3.7 that gave increased attribute have been moved so they are no longer in the radius of any jewel socket. As these clusters skewed the power level of certain unique jewels too heavily. As a result, the Tempered Flesh and Transcendent Flesh now have 7% critical strike multiplier per unallocated strength in radius, up from 5%, is now worthless. And Tempered Mine and Transcended Mine now have 125 accuracy rating per unallocated intellect, up from 100, is now worthless. These should make these tempting choices in more locations on the tree. They don't. It doesn't. It doesn't. You just made them 1 elk jewels again. Okay. Less stuff on my loot filter is good for me. That's fine. Changes to various ascendancies. We've made a host of changes to various ascendancies, most notable were Necromancer, Saboteur, and Assassin. Alongside the changes, in addition to their standard skill archetypes, you can see them here, here, and here. Other ascendancies have been touched to a lesser degree, and a few different reasons. Below are some of the notable changes. Our intent is to have fewer passives that take an underused skill or mechanic and give it the tools it needs to be used. We're moving these effects into the skills themselves as they level, providing more generally useful bonuses that still keep the same theme. The first time they did this, to my memory, the first one I remember was Guardian, when they were like, here's a Herald of Purity for Guardian thing, and I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. You should never ever put skill specific things behind an ascendancy ever. Might have been something else. I can't remember what it was first, but every time they've done it since then, and they've done it a lot, I keep saying you should never ever tie skills to an ascendancy. It can only work out two ways. It's either so good it's mandatory or so bad it's irrelevant. Those are the only two options. That's it. If you do it, it's either mandatory or irrelevant. That's it. So it's just bad design to put them there. So I'm really happy that they're moving away from that and that they've finally seen that. Our intent is that fewer passives take underused skills. Yep, we're moving the effect onto the skills itself, providing more general bonus of the same theme. The Necromancer redesign is the most obvious example of this, and we've also changed the Guardian so that he no longer grants specific bonuses to Herald of Purity and Dominating Blow minions. We've also built the Crusader Slam effect into the minions themselves. We'll likely do this with more as part of future reworks. Nice. The Hierophant's mana path has changed as a result of the review to all mana mechanics. It should be more offensively powerful for a character with heavy mana investment now, with its defensive power slightly reduced. I'm on board with that. That might actually help my Hierophant League Start Guide. The Elementalist has had its Golem path adjusted, providing much more power to the player on an invested Golem character, while no longer being the only way for a character to get additional Golems outside of the unique items, thanks to the new Golem cluster on the passive tree. Ooh. Should be a more desirable path for builds that don't really rely entirely on their minions. As a result, Beacon of Ruin now grants increased effect of non-damaging ailments to improve its overall power. Okay. They're ready to receive some numerical improvements and one additional aura mechanic to make it more competitive. It will receive more changes in the future to give it a more unique feature. I just need to point out that the radar changes have like flown under everyone's radar, and that the more chance to avoid and then more chance to avoid projectiles on top of it is OP as fuck, and people need to pay more attention to it, because it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if one of our king build creators ends up making one of these a few weeks into the league and already has it planned. I'm not even going to name him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's already got one running in his head waiting for the skill tree to come out, because it is an OP mechanic, and getting 2 more multipliers on projectiles and 1 more multiplier on all evasion is huge. Like, it's huge. It's being underlooked. I'm overlooked. It's being overlooked. Because everyone was like, it's just mechanical, it's just number balances. Yeah, okay, but there's some good numbers. The Cultist Vile Bastion now grants 40 energy shield regenerated per second at all time, granting it a more reliable recovery, especially at lower levels. Still not taking it. The chieftain now provides 25% to fire damage over time multiplier instead of 15% more burning damage, providing a more powerful for burning characters unless they're heavily invested in damage over time multiplier. You can stop saying this. They keep putting this word here, unless you're heavily invested in damage over time multiplier. Do you know how hard it is to get so invested in like non-chaos damage over time multiplier now that it's still not the best stat? It's not possible. You can't possibly get enough that the next bit of it isn't still the best stat for you. I understand that eventually that would happen in theory, but the amount you need is so high, it remains the best stat all of the time. I suspect the same thing will happen to all damage over time multipliers they put in the tree, unless they put it in such ridiculous amounts that we can get that high, in which case we won't care about having more damage because we'll already be doing millions. Berserker and Sayer were a little too generically powerful for attack builds, so some node values have been adjusted. Slayer's Bane of the Legend node has had the value of attack and move speed granted reduced to 10. Overwhelming has had its base critical strike chance lowered to 7.5. Okay, we lost 0.5% crit and 10% move speed and attack, as well as half of the Slayer flat damage, half of the flat damage from Cyclone, as well as 40% or so of the area that Cyclone had, as well as the pulverize support gem. There's too many. You're doing that thing again where you're like, tap, 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 tap. This is my nerf hammer. It's just too many. Stop hitting things from 9 angles at the same time. Okay. The Berserker's Crave of the Slaughter no longer grants a chance to deal double damage. Bonus is being moved to the Warbringer if you've used a Warcry recently. Okay. Probably still not going to use that. Flawless Savagery now grants a lower value of critical strike chance for attacks and slightly less critical strike multiplier. We really only cared about the attack speed from Berserker, I'm not going to lie. Crit was nice, but attack speed, that's what fixes everything. The Trickster's Ghost Dance passive was providing a bit too much defense for a single node, so we hit it for a third time. The chance to evade, reduced to damage taken amount, and amount of energy shield recovered has been lowered. Fucking boom, boom, boom! Multiple angles! Let's go! Fuck you too, Trickster. The Ascendant has had passives related to many of the adjusted ascendancies above changed. For example, the Saboteur node now prevents more elemental penetration before. Necromancy node now penalizes offerings on you less and grants additional area of effect if you've consumed a corpse recently. Cool. Veiled modifiers. We've made a number of changes to unlocking the veiled modifiers easy. Ooh, you've reinvigorated my love. We'll keep reading in case it's shit. Hang on. Calm down, little Baylor. Don't get excited yet. Modifiers granted only by items from specific syndicate members now require half as many unveils to learn and craft. They're also more likely to appear as one of the potential modifiers. Oh yeah. Yep. Modifiers only found on less common item types that are limited to only one or two item types are now much more likely to appear as unveiled options. Ooh. Okay. Flask modifiers unveiled from the flask unique for the Syndicate Mastermind now only requires a single unveil to unlock. The intent is that it shouldn't be necessary for a character to learn every single crafting recipe in the league, but we want to make it easier for specific modifiers you'd like to craft. We'll continue to monitor the result of these changes. Okay, I'm on board. Those excite me. I don't think they've gone quite enough in the direction that I would like. I don't necessarily mind the idea of veiled modifiers needing to be unlocked. but it feels like that's still going to be more work than it should be. And I feel like the problem with that is the bottom line here. The bottom line here is the problem. The bottom passage here. The intent is that it shouldn't be necessary for a character to learn every single crafting recipe each league. Okay, I get you. But also, I play 600 hours a league and I want every crafting recipe. Like, fuck off. Like, I want them. Like, okay, if you only play 100 hours over the entire league or 50 hours over the entire league, sure. Maybe you don't unlock everything. How am I not unlocking everything? I'm doing this for a fucking job. This is my full-time life. How did I manage to not unlock everything? Like, what? Come on. So I don't think this is far enough, but it's definitely in the right direction. Okay, other changes. Packs of monsters that spawn with rare monsters now have a single shared modifier from the rare, as well as more life, damage, experience, and item rewards. This will make rare monster encounters more rewarding and able to provide a greater challenge. Ooh. Ooh. Okay. Monster accuracy has been lowered as 3.7's accuracy evasion calculation changed the result in monsters being notably more likely to hit a character with medium investment in evasion. These changes bring the evasion-focused characters back to the previous evade chance against monsters, though characters with low evasion will still be likely be hit more than prior to 3.7. We've also reduced the chance for league mechanics that drop a random unique to drop league-specific uniques. This ended up being the most common source of league-specific headhunter uniques in some leagues. We've increased the speed that breach expands in the endgame breach domains. This lets you clear through a breach domain faster than before. We've increased the amount of time that you start with in the elemental and physical breaches in the endgame breach domains to compensate for the faster expansions. You'll have just as much total time to complete the breach. The amount of time that you start with in the chaos breach domain has not changed, and thus it will be significantly more challenging. We've improved life scaling on the bosses to be more consistent across levels, increasing the density of monsters in the breach domains, removing the increased life mod from the breach domains, and increase the life of the monsters in the breach domains to compensate. This will even out the challenge of pure breach domains. Prior to this change, the bosses of physical and chaos breach stones had less life than the elemental breach stone bosses in pure breach stone domains. Okay. Okay. Are we doing breach runs again? Because if we're doing breach runs again, I can still make an animate weapon build. And I'll be really happy about that. Because I really do like animate weapon. I feel like we're doing breach runs again, guys. Something breach stones. Everybody get it that fled into whatever the 1 second from the right is. We've made adjustments to a large variety of unique items based on their use. For example, Poet's Pen trigger spell now has a cooldown of 0.15, down from 0.25. It now only triggers on finishing attack rather than starting it because of animation cancel. Excuse me? Didn't you intentionally nerf Poet's Pen? Oh my god, Poet's Pen necromancers are so a thing. Are so a thing this league. Poet's Pen necromancers. Poet's Pen, VD, body swap, your old playstyle is fucking back and kicking. It's just now a necromancer, that's all. It's just now a necromancer. Okay. Blasphemous Grasp now gives 4% to damage over time multiplier for ailments for each elder item equipped instead of 15% increased damage with ailments. What the fuck is Blasphemous Grasp? Oh, those. Yeah, I never wore those. That's fair. That might even be a bit strong, but that's fair. That's fair. That concludes all of the major balance changes we're wanting to discuss today. There are many smaller changes that you'll be able to read about in the patch notes tomorrow. Hopefully you've enjoyed upcoming balance changes. We look forward to playing with you all in the upcoming Coriander League. Fantastic. Fantastic. Alright. Well, I'm on board with most of them. I'm on board with most of the changes. I'm overall pretty happy. I feel like they did the big fucking body slash, fucking smash to pieces the Cyclone thing. I feel like the nerfs we had heard to Cyclone before today was a pretty appropriate amount that people were already complaining about, but it looked like it was going to be okay. It looked like it was going to be 30 to 40% less area and about 15 to 20% less damage, and that was going to put it, in my opinion, in a good spot. They kind of hit it with a bunch of other things here at the same time, and it just sort of the same thing they always do, where when they want to nerf something, instead of just tapping it on the head, they smash it with a giant two-handed hammer repetitively until it's a spot on the ground and no one wants it. And I'm worried that that's what they're going to do again, and it kind of looks like it's leaning in that direction. I might be overstating it. I think Cyclone will still work better than it did before 3.7. but not better enough for me to want to play it again. So, yeah. Other than that, pretty excited about most of it. Don't necessarily know how I feel about the mana changes. Those ones are a bit. It's gonna have to marinate a little. The mana changes for spells not being able to leech from any source, even the support gem for mana leech, which struck me as really weird. Like, I'm giving up a gem for that, and that's still too strong? Like, really? Okay, but yeah, that one's gonna have to marinate, but most everything else I'm very happy with. Overall, pretty happy. All right.